So, my name is Liz, and this is my presentation for my final paper for RD430. Just a brief outline of what I'm going to go over. So, just a quick introduction of the business that I chose to examine, a little bit of background about it, then looking at the competition for the business, some challenges that the business might face, and then finally just closing up with my future projections and recommendations for the business. So first, I just wanted to highlight the definition for rural business, that's defined in our text, and it's defined as firms that are established and operate in rural settings far from the metropolitan areas that have traditionally been the site of most non-agricultural businesses enterprises. Um, so the business I'm going to talk about is Black Diamond Resort Company. It's located in Healy, Alaska, about 10 miles north of Denali National Park. For the purpose of this paper, I'm actually going to be referencing my experience as a manager for Black Diamond. I worked for that company during the summers of 2018 and 2019, and then through the winter of 2019 through 2020. So the company is unique, not only in the services that it offers, and we'll get into that on the next slide, but also in the way that the business operates. So for the purpose of this paper, I chose to kind of examine the business through my perspective, as being a manager during those years. So a little bit of background about Black Diamond. It was started in 1895, actually by Marilyn and Annette Tallarico with the help of their father, Frank. And it originally was just a driving range with an honor system style cash box. Eventually, they evolved that into the golf course and then restaurant. Now they also, and then ultimately, ATV tours and covered wagon tours. And now it's a 70-seat restaurant. There's a 9-hole golf course, and they have 24 draft horses in total that they use for their covered wagon rides. So a little bit more background about the company. So in terms of employees, Black Diamond operates from mid-May to the end of September. Usually they hire on roughly 100 seasonal employees to help run the operation. About half of these employees are employed from the United States, and then the other half typically are international students that come over on a J1 visa. So they are able to work for a set number of months and then travel for 1 month after they're finished working. During my time there, the majority of the staff was there. We had about 100 employees coming from 19 different countries all over the world. It's pretty common for seasonal staff to come to Alaska on a J1 visa. Summertime, school's not in session. The company also does have a handful of other international employees that are not students, so they do not come over on a J1 visa. They come over on an H2B visa, which is a little bit different. Typically, the management is usually the ones that are on the H2B visa. They're not students. They have already finished school. They're just there solely to work. The majority of the staff is spread across. Sorry, my computer tried to exit out for a second. So the majority of the staff at Black Diamond is spread across the golf course, the ATV tours, and then the covered wagon tours, as well as the restaurant, the kitchen, and then just overall building maintenance, because they do have employee housing on site. There's usually 1 or 2 managers per department, with Marilyn Tellerico, now Usabelli, being the sole owner. On a normal busy season, she'll have a CEO working directly under her to kind of run the day-to-day front end of operations, and she's typically more in the back office handling back end business work. With the seasonal nature of the business, the company does have a pretty high turnover rate with employees, not only within the season itself, but also just from season to season, especially with the ones that come over on um, the J1 visa. If it's their last year of school, if they're not students the following year, they're not going to be able to come back on that type of visa. So typically, we don't see too many returners. Some people, though, they do come from multiple seasons. The management staff is usually the only ones that have that continue to come back for multiple seasons. Some of the management staff that is there now was there when I was working there, but has been there for 10 plus years. So it's pretty typical for them to have been there for a really long time. So business activities. Black Diamond is really unique. There's really no other company in the area that offers the same type of experiences. So, as I've kind of hit on before, they have a 9-hole golf course, ATV tours, covered wagon rides, as well as a restaurant. Each aspect of the business could really honestly be successful on its own, but pulling them all together and making them all run as one on the scale really does put them ahead of the rest of their competition. So the golf course, for example, is really unique. First of all, it's built on tundra, which has taken the company, it took them years to be able to actually build that, and also like huge financial capital to be able to build that. And then it's, just nestled at the bottom of Mount Healy, really scenic, really beautiful. So not only does it have these stunning views with the chance for your guests to be able to golf underneath the midnight sun, which is, a unique experience in and of itself. During peak season, golfers can golf up until, 2 in the morning. So that's really unique. And there is no other company in the immediate area that offers that. There's no other company within 100-mile radius of Healy that offers golf. So then right next to the golf course is the restaurant, which is one of the only places in Healy that guests will be able to find freshly caught Alaskan seafood and Alaska grown produce. There are a variety of other restaurants in the area, but Black Diamond's really unique in the menu that they offer, with a handful of signature dishes. And not only is this restaurant really popular with tourists, it's also really popular with local people that live in Healy. So then moving into ATV tours, they have a variety of different tours that they offer that are aimed at all different types of travelers. For those with limited experience and mostly interested in seeing, just beautiful scenery, they have more of a classic style ATV tour where you're just going to ride in the line following the guide. And then they do offer a treasure hunt tour that's kind of more designed for families. It gives guests the options to ride in a 6-seat ATV with the guide driving them down more advanced trails. And this tour is based on the premise of geocaching. So then the last thing that they offer is the covered wagon rides, which is probably one of the more iconic offerings that Black Diamond has. So on this tour, guests are pulled in a covered wagon by a team of 2 draft horses. As they go down the trails, the guests are able to see stunning views, wildlife, and have the opportunity to learn about Alaska, but also driving horses as well. At the midpoint of the tour, the guests are taken to a pavilion for a backcountry style dining experience. And then for marketing, so the primary source of business for Black Diamond is through the cruise companies. As typical with most cruises, there are, a set of optional excursions in different locations that guests are able to add on to their vacation. And Black Diamond is advertised as one of those optional excursions. So through a strong and long-standing relationship with the cruise companies, Black Diamond is one of those preferred partners for excursions. So when guests choose this option, they're picked up from their hotel by Black Diamond and brought to the company where they're then taken on their tour or shown to the clubhouse for a game of golf or seated in the restaurant for their reservation. The company does have a website and strong social media presence as well. They're also advertised in a lot of guidebooks like the Alaska Milepost book, the Explore Fairbanks Visitors Guide, just to kind of name a few. And then contribution to the local economy. So Black Diamond is pretty active in the local economy for the community in Healy. Not only is the golf course and restaurant really popular with locals, the company also contributes to many different charities. So every year they host a charity golf tournament that's hugely popular among locals within the Denali borough and also in the surrounding, greater Fairbanks area, as well as people coming up from Anchorage. And then Black Diamond also hosts a lot of different fundraising events for the Tri-Valley School, which is the local school in Healy. So moving into competition. So as I kind of touched on, what they offer is pretty unique. In the town of Healy, there really is not a whole lot of competition. There's one company that offers ATV tours. There's a handful of restaurants, one company that offers horseback riding tours, and then no other place within a 100-mile radius that offers a golf course. So first, talking about Denali ATV, which is actually a neighboring company that operates out of Healy, and they actually run most of the same tour routes as Black Diamond ATV tours and covered wagon tours do. In terms of competition, personally, from my experience as being a manager, they do have a little bit of a leg up on Black Diamond in terms of the machines that they use. Denali ATV tends to sell off their machines every year and then purchase new ones for the following season. So they are running newer, better. They typically buy bigger and more powerful machines. But on the flip side of that, Black Diamond, however, offers some of their ATV tours with a meal, which is not something that Denali ATV does. They strictly just go on the tour, run the trails, and come back, as opposed to Black Diamond, which you do have the option to just do the tour, but you also have the option to have a meal or different experiences on the tour. And then Denali Horseback Tours is another company in the Healy area that offers tours with horses. The difference between Denali Horseback Tours and Black Diamond, however, is that Denali Horseback Tours are strictly riding, not covered wagon rides. So on these tours, the guests are riding the horses. It's a trail ride. So it's typically, for people that either have at least a little bit of experience riding horses or at least a desire to ride horses. Black Diamond, in this sense, with having the covered wagon rides, obviously they can accommodate 15 people on a wagon, so they are able to cater to large groups, families, people with young children, older people that maybe don't want to ride a horse. Just a better option overall for different types of travelers. And then, as I kind of briefly touched on, restaurant competition. So there's a handful of other restaurants within the area. The 49th State Brewing Company is probably one of the bigger ones in Healy that's only seasonal as well. So they're only open from May to September, just like the Black Diamond restaurant is. It is another local favorite. It's one that locals look forward to going to every summer, as well as the Totem Pub, which is another local restaurant that is a local favorite. That one is open year round, however. So even though it is popular with the locals, they do have the option of eating there throughout the winter, as opposed to Black Diamond and 49th, where they only have, a handful of months out of the year to go experience it. Black Diamond typically, though, has a little bit of a leg up on 49th in the sense that it is owned locally. It is owned by a local family that is very prominent within, the school and the community. So they do have a bit more of a relationship with local people in Healy and tend to attract more through that. So then challenges through the business. So quite a few, and through my experience as manager for Black Diamond, um, like I said, the business is certainly unique and the challenges that they face are super unique. So for the purpose of this paper, I chose to highlight the challenges that the business faced from my perspective as a manager for the horse department for Black Diamond. So in total, Black Diamond's got roughly 24 draft horses. This is a unique challenge in and of itself, just because they are draft horses. They are larger in size and they do require more nutritional and health management in order to obtain their muscle and weight. The horses spend the summer working towards Healy, and then in the wintertime, they actually go to Delta Junction where they're boarded at a bison farm. One of the biggest challenge with having the horses there for only a short period, for only the summer, is that every spring and every fall, the horses have to get moved from one location to the other. So from Healy to Delta or Delta to Healy. And the horse trailer that they use to transport the horses can only fit 6 at a time. So when you have 24 in total and could only fit 6 horses maximum, it does pose a challenge to having to make multiple trips to Delta. It's about a 200-mile one-way trip. So with a fully loaded horse trailer, it does take a while. And it's a lot of strain on, resources. If one person is doing every single run, they may not be able to do them all consecutively every single day. Usually 2 people go at once. There's one person driving and then one passenger. So, at a minimum, you're losing 2 employees for a whole day for 6 days. But typically the driving responsibility is spread across different employees. So you do lose a few employees over the course of the week of bringing all the horses down, and it takes a full week to get them down. So another big part of the main challenge, or one of the main challenges to the business, were resources like water, feed, and hay. So the fields the horses were kept in at Black Diamond, they're dry, so they have no running water to the field. So we had to haul water. This is a challenge, especially during the really hot days of the summer when the horses are drinking a lot more. On average, it took anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to haul water to each of the pastures. So again, it takes up a lot of, employee resources. And then with, feed and hay, there's nobody in Healy that, produces grain or hay for horses. So the grain that we used came from Fairbanks, and then the hay actually came from the same farm in Delta that the horses go to in the wintertime. So it's very convenient in the wintertime. However, in the summer, the hay has to be hauled in on a semi. And typically it's 800-pound bales, roughly costing about $400 a bale. On average, we would go through about 100 bales in the summer, so roughly $40,000 on hay in the summer alone. The price of the hay does go down in the wintertime since they are staying on the same facility as where the hay, most of that hay, cost for the hay comes from just shipping it. So that price does go down, but that's still a pretty big number. Another huge challenge is veterinary care. The farm call fee alone for the vet to come out and visit was $3,000. And that doesn't include, that's just for the vet to set foot on the property. That doesn't include any, treatment or medication that the horses are going to get. And then the farrier as well. So the person that is trimming the horses' feet and putting shoes on them also had to be flown in from out of state. The average cost of, the farrier on shoes and the services for the farrier is roughly $30,000 per year. And that doesn't include, flights and lodging for the farrier to bring them out to Healy. So it's very expensive business. Anything with horses is expensive, but of course, adding in the remoteness and being in Alaska, it certainly highlights that. And then the last challenge that I wanted to highlight is safety. So while the company does require the wagon drivers to have experience with horses, they don't require previous driving experience with horses. So this can be a huge safety concern since we are working with the public, some of which have never been around horses before. So it can be a huge liability. According to the equine liability statute in Alaska, a person who participates in any activity relating to horses assumes the inherent risk that sports or recreational activity and is legally responsible for all injuries or death to the person or other persons. In most states, there's usually a posted sign that makes participants aware of the liability they are assuming. Black Diamond does not have any of these signs posted. It is a huge challenge. They are horses, although they are very well trained, there's still going to be issues. They may spook at something. It's just huge liability to have the not the most experienced employees driving the horses, and also faulty equipment. This is another huge thing. A lot of the times the wagons just did not have properly working brakes, or the harnesses were old and may not fit the horses properly, or were cracking. So a huge challenge in terms of safety working with the public. So some future projections and recommendations. So from my experiences in 2018 and 2019, I can say that the business has continued to grow each year, not counting COVID, of course. By the end of 2019, we were at the point where business was starting to become too big for the resources that we had. There were numerous times that we literally did not have enough horses and wagons to accommodate the amount of reservations that we had for specific tour times. As I kind of touched on, the equipment was constantly falling apart, with many of us going out in wagons that had no working brakes. All of the fixes and solutions were just kind of like temporary band-aiding it and hoping that we just get through the next tour and then we'll deal with it later, but it never actually got dealt with. If the business continues to grow like this, my projection is that it is, and my recommendation is that I would suggest they invest time and money in the off season to do some serious repair work on the equipment, so that it's actually going to last for years to come. In the long run, this preventative maintenance is going to hopefully save them more time and money. Obviously, there are some things that, with the challenges that I've just kind of mentioned too, there are some things that it's just subject to the location of the business. And since it is in Alaska and they are in a remote location, resources are going to be harder to come by and they're going to just be more expensive by nature. There's really not much we could do, in my experience, to mitigate the cost of the hay, the veterinary care, and farrier services for the horses. Another recommendation that I would have too is with staffing. As I said, with safety, especially with the horses, but also with the ATVs as well, just making sure that your staff is properly trained, that they understand the expectations of them, that you're consistent with your training and your expectations, and offering more so that you do have return staffing coming back year after year just provides more consistency and cohesiveness with the business, especially with the horses. So yeah, that's kind of everything I have. I thought that it would be interesting to do the paper from my perspective, because I had, worked there for 2 years and saw 2 years, 2 different years with different employees, different horses, different growth. Um, but also now being able to take the things that I've learned in this class about, economic development, on entrepreneurship, and apply that, um, to my reflection on the experience. So just reflecting back on, how the company operated and different things that they did to make themselves unique to market, to run the business more efficiently, um, and just being able to use kind of that experience in my perspective to apply what I've learned from this class. So that is the end of my presentation.